want to send you guys to Hodges Ortho. Don't make the same mistakes I did. Dr. Hodges and her staff are committed to helping children and adults of all backgrounds achieve beautiful, healthy smiles. And your dental hygiene is more than just your smile. It's about your overall health. Hodges Ortho has 3 locations in Bella Cynwyd, Montgomeryville, and Ben Salem. Reach out to Dr. Hodges for your free consultation today. Visit HodgesOrtho.com.
This is Ice-T,
Stone Cold Steve Austin, and
Matty Ice.
This is a cold call.
I convinced NFL teams to turn to cold water washing with Tide.
the NFL, your uniforms get dirty.
Tide can handle it, even in cold. Plus, if fans join in, they can save up to $150 on their energy bill.
looks like you just made the team, rookie.
Turn to cold with Tide.
And that's the bottom line.
It's got to be Tide. Energy savings based on average from switching from hot to cold and non-HE machine.
Hello?
Dad?
Sarah, what's wrong?
I'm pregnant. What am I going to do?
Finding out you're pregnant can be confusing, scary, and even make you feel alone. But it doesn't have to. By calling 1-888-LIFE-AID, you can talk with a trained and caring counselor who can help you sort out your situation. It's free and completely confidential. Real Alternatives operates the state's pregnancy and parenting support program. Call 1-888-LIFE-AID or go to 1-888-LIFEAID.com.
At LASIK Experts, we believe that LASIK should improve your life, not keep you from living it. Get LASIK today from Dr. Chirag Shah, Philadelphia's most experienced LASIK surgeon, for only $9.99 per eye. Everyone qualifies. LASIK Experts is also the only provider in Philadelphia to offer Smile, the next generation of laser vision correction. With the latest LASIK technology, the best price guarantee, and the most experienced surgeon in the area, why would you go anywhere else? Book your free no-obligation consultation today at LASIKexperts.com.
Mrs. T's mini pierogies can turn any meal into the new favorite. Delicious pasta pockets stuffed with creamy potato, a medley of cheeses, and other tasty ingredients. Mini pierogies are perfect for sides, snacks, or any time of day. They're easy to make, fun to eat, and enjoyed by all.
Yeah, I'm here.
Let me try again. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 9th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting for Newtown Township. As I call this meeting to order, I'd like to invite you to observe with me a moment of silence. And as we do that, maybe take a couple of breaths and relax your mind and body and prepare for the evening ahead. So let us have a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mr. Manager, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any special actions? I'm not aware of any, so we can just keep moving to public comment. So we come to our first round of public comment. I just invite everyone to come up. We'd ask that when you come up that you give your name and where you live. Don't have to give you a complete address, just the development.
Okay, Frank McCarron, Delancey Court, Newtown Township. I would like to make some comments regarding the proposed Newtown Gun Show. I know we talked about it last time. The reason I'm bringing it up, though, I'll explain. So, the owner of the Newtown Athletic Club, Jim Worthington, was recently on a podcast hosted by Dom Giordano, where they discussed the upcoming gun show. I believe Mr. Worthington said that he had a right to rent out space for the gun show while he was appealing the zoning violation, as the event had already been scheduled. I do not know if the township agrees with this position. However, Mr. Worthington announced on this podcast that he was nevertheless postponing the gun show as a show of good faith to the township while he appealed the zoning violation. The reason why I'm bringing this up today is that I went on the website of the show organizer, Eagle Shows, and this gun show is still on their calendar. I have a printout that I will give to you. I also have a printout from another website, igunshows.com, that as of today is still promoting this event. I would like to know if anyone from the township has spoken with Mr. Worthington to confirm that he was postponing the gun show, and if the township has not spoken with him, could someone from the township contact Mr. Worthington and find out what are his intentions? If he has postponed the gun show, I would ask the township to ask Mr. Worthington to ask Eagle Shows to remove the show from their list of upcoming events and notify the businesses that are continuing to advertise the show. I also read the zoning violation notice that was sent to this business. It seems to me that Mr. Worthington, if he wanted to, could host this gun show even if the appeal were denied, though he would be subject to a $500 fine. I would like to request that the township confirm with Mr. Worthington that if his appeal is denied, that he will respect that decision and not, in fact, rent out this space to the organizer of the gun show. Otherwise, this offer to postpone the event pending the appeal is not the show of good faith to the township that some of us had in mind. I would also like to talk about the size of the show and what it means in terms of traffic and safety. The advertisement for the gun show, which I'll show to you, indicates that there will be 350 display tables at this show. I don't know how many people work at each table, but if it's one person per table, that would mean 350 people working at the show. That begs the question, does the township know what size crowd that would bring? For example, does an event like this average 10 persons per table, which would mean 3,500 people coming to the show? I believe the residents of the township have a right to know what is the township's protocol in general and what it will do here in particular in terms of traffic and safety when a large event is being held in the township, or for that matter, in the borough, as everyone has to pass through the township, as well as who bears that cost. You may also be aware that there was an article, I believe on Sunday, in the Bucks County Beacon talking about this gun show. This article appears to be saying that this whole controversy can be traced back to a gun dealer from outside of Bucks County who purportedly posted a flyer on the Newtown, Pennsylvania Facebook page. And the article seems to say that the gun dealer had or has a view that the resulting hubbub would draw attention to the Newtown Gun Show and bring more buyers. Looking at the flyer from this light, I for one feel like we have all been played. I personally had seen this flyer and I took a screenshot of it on my phone before the last Board of Supervisors meeting. And unfortunately, if the point of this gun dealer was to generate more attendance by generating controversy, then the township has to be prepared for incidents of controversy during this show. If this event goes forward, I, for one, would like to see an increased police presence in the township, and for that matter, in the borough. My concern is not that anyone in particular will be coming to this gun show looking for trouble, but there may be some who come here ready for trouble, and the township needs to be ready. And in hindsight, I feel that as a township, we should take a step back and see what can be learned from this experience. Is there anything that the township could have done differently to get out ahead of a controversial event like this? For one thing, I recall that eConsult had recommended that the township raise its fees, and so maybe higher fines are in order. That would certainly incentivize business owners to interact with the township on an earlier basis. eConsult had also recommended hiring a full-time code enforcement officer. This position was not filled because eConsult had budgeted zero revenue from this position, but maybe that needs a second look. And at the same time, I think Mr. Worthington should take a step back and look at what he might have done differently. Mr. Worthington has built the Newtown Athletic Club into a very valuable business, and I support within reason the NAC or any other business looking for creative ways to raise additional revenues. I used to go to the Surround Cycle on Richborough Road, and COVID restrictions put that out of business. As a result, I bought a Peloton, so even if it came back, I would not be going back. But at the same time, Mr. Worthington said on the podcast that he allows his athletic director to decide what events to book, and he did not even know that a gun show was booked. If I were advising Mr. Worthington, I would encourage him to give thought to how a controversial event might negatively affect the image of his NAC brand, and I would recommend that he set parameters for his athletic director in order to protect his brand. And I also note that if the NAC had filed for the appropriate zoning permit, perhaps this matter would have been resolved without even reaching this stage. I believe Mr. Worthington should also, I believe that Mr. Worthington should also be concerned about how users of his event space promote their events, particularly in a subcontractor situation like this, where Eagle Shows is in turn renting the event space to other parties, such as the gun dealer who posted the flyer on the Newtown Facebook page. So whatever happens with this appeal, I hope that all the parties take a step back, take stock of what happened, and develop something positive from this experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
John DeApril, Newtown Grant. Biggest and the best. You know, it's nice to wish. I wish that these crybabies wouldn't come up here and talk about people. I mean, the man's right down the road. If you call him, he may answer your call. Of course, he's used to talking to whiny crybabies, but, you know, maybe he won't take your call. Somebody from his facility will answer him and give him all his answers. So they answer all his questions, and, you know, then he can go back to his $1 million house and do whatever he does, play solitaire or whatever. But, I mean, I hate to see one of Johnny Mac's minions come up here and badmouth the township and badmouth one of our biggest employers in the township. You know, and then you got this simple guy up there snickering and all that stuff. But, you know, call a guy up. You know, he'll talk to you. I'm sure most of you people talk to him already on different occasions, maybe not for this one. But, I mean, whatever you decide to do, whatever is the law, the man owns a lot of property, and, you know, he rents his facility out for certain things. And, you know, if it's legal, hey, there's no way to stop him. Oh, and besides, most of the townships around here have gun shops. As far as I know, there's none in Newtown. I mean, Langhorne, Bristol's got many, you know, Levittown, whatever township falls, or Middletown. They all have gun shops. You know, we don't have any that I know of. And what's all the big complaints? If the crybabies would know who goes to a gun show and how many people they have and any incidents where they had problems at gun shows, I'm sure they had some problems, because anything you do, I mean, you hold a rally for peace and you have problems sometimes. But, you know, look into these things instead of getting up here and whining like a baby. Thank you.
Can I say something? I'm sorry. That is outrageous.
That is. I agree with him completely. That is
Please,
outrageous. To call
gentlemen.
anybody up here a crybaby who's rendering an opinion is just unacceptable. At any moment.
Maybe you are too.
My name is Greg Zarnota.
Please, gentlemen.
I'm from Newtown Grant.
One at a time.
And whatever he said about crybabies is ridiculous, as far as that's concerned. That's the only thing I have to say about this. The gun show is going to be what it's going to be. I do believe we're going to need extra cops. maybe state police, depending on how big this event's going to be. Are they selling tickets, giving tickets? Is there a school down the road that maybe shouldn't be around a gun show? Is there anything like that? We're looking at it that way. Well, we don't call people names. Thank you.
No, I would ask that we refrain from name-calling personal attacks. Not saying who's done what, but that's got to be a ground rule that we have.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Hank Schrant, and let's see, what's the name of my house? Walnut Ridge. That's the name of my housing development. So, like Newtown Grant, Walnut Ridge. But we only have 18 houses, and he lives like in the city.
Talk to the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, as far as I don't consider myself a crybaby, but I reached out to Jim Worthington a few times because when January 6th hit, there was the buses meeting in the parking lot right beyond the cemetery. I was the counter protester on the news by myself with a big flashlight, and it got a lot of notice, probably because I was the only one there. But everybody rolled up, and the film crew filmed people pulling up to me, and then they were saying things like, "We're going to stop the steal. We're not going to let take our votes, whatever." And it was a steady stream, and it was 4 buses, not 3, 4 buses that left. So with that, there was also a lot of talk about Jim Worthington's sponsoring it. But granted, they did sell tickets, and the people aboard it based on the selling of the tickets. But I challenged Jim Worthington of why you're down there on January 5th, why are you outside I think it's the Wilmot Hotel where strategy's going on and all in D.C. So why is he down there? So we had dialogue on his website called PA First District for Trump, and shortly after it got taken down, but he requested to contact me. I hope you're watching, Jim. Contact me. And he never did. I left messages, sent him emails, the site went down. And oh, by the way, as far as what was communicated from the people, his followers, there was a statement said prepare for Antifa. That's really a dog whistle for come lock and load it. So you get to know the jargon from the website if you basically troll it, which I was doing because I was concerned about January 6th. And you'll be surprised how much talk was about bringing guns. Is it legal to bring open carry? Things like that on the discussion. But a lot of those posts quickly disappeared. So Jim asked to reach out to him, make an appointment with him, but never happened. I tried several times, tried to leave messages, never got called back. Okay. So as far as Jim's an honest and upfront guy, I take him with a grain of salt, okay? Because he talks one way, does another. So if it's in his interest, he'll go that way. But anything beyond that, it's about if it's not for Jim Worthington, that's it. Yeah. So that's my take on Jim, and that's my experience. Thank you.
Any others? Sir? Please state your name and where you live in the township.
Good evening. I'm Pete Ancona in Newtown Crossing. I'm on the board of directors for the Homeowners Association there. My comments are about a completely different topic, one that most everyone, probably except Ellen, unless she was reading the news of her last few years about Arcadia development. And the purpose of my comments tonight is just to kind of, I guess, one last time ask for the support of the board in helping us take one last look at the access and egress options for the development. The history for the development is, I think, pretty well known. There's been a lot of activity over a lot of years and a lot of support on the part of the Board of Supervisors in making sure that when the development was going to get built, that it would be built with safe access and egress. And unfortunately, and one of the things as a result of the settlement agreement that the board worked on with the developer was that a process would be put together to look at different options besides the main option, which was a U-turn down at Diamond Drive and Mill Pond Road, just south of the development on Buck Road. Earlier this week, I sent you all an email. Don't know whether you've seen it yet or not, but kind of the current situation is that the access study was done. PennDOT is pretty much, basically said the only one of the alternatives, of the four alternatives that they would approve was the U-turn alternative, which is something that uniformly the community, and there's over 800 families between the four communities involved with those two intersections there, and the Board of Supervisors, and even most recently the Planning Commission in their comments back to the Board of Supervisors, all have reservations and concerns about the ability of traffic to move in and out of that development safely, and some of the traffic issues, illegal turns, illegal maneuvers, and things like that that will probably occur, since the U-turn is really only going to be legal for passenger vehicles, SUVs, that kind of thing, not for commercial trucks and things. So what we're trying to do is make one last push with, since we're talking about PennDOT's a state agency, and has made their decision, is we're working with State Senator Steve Santasario and Representative Perry Warren, and they've indicated support on our behalf, working with us to make another pitch with PennDOT to take another look at alternative 2C, which was basically improving the signalization in the intersection, which would allow for safe and protected entrance and exit in any direction coming out of and into the development. So the one thing, and Carl Ruzicka, who's another board member, and myself met with representatives of their office, both of their offices earlier this week, and they basically, know the current situation. They said they'd be willing to work with us. But one thing they did ask for is some indication of the position of the Board of Supervisors as the representatives of the overall community, not just our developments. So, that was kind of the tone of my message, was to try to talk with you tonight, recognizing that this is just kind of a one-way conversation, possibly meeting with you either collectively or individually if you have any questions, or we could talk with you further about that. And also trying to summarize all of your positions, which have been very strong in your concerns about the U-turn option, so that we could take one last run at the at alternative 2C with PennDOT as the best balanced choice for the community. Recognize that the scoring, the objective scoring that that was done for alternative 4 scored the best that way, but that really doesn't take into consideration all of the concerns of the community, of the Board of Supervisors, of the Planning Committee. It's really just an engineering study, and we think there's more to it than that. And, based on your comments in the past, I think you guys all recognize that as well. And as horrible as what happened up at Sycamore Street has been, and especially the most recent, accident that resulted in a fatality there, and you guys have taken very swift action to work to improve that situation. I think you all and all of us have recognized the potential for, because of the amount of traffic in that area, for very serious accidents, injuries, and potentially worse in the future. And we're just asking one more time for your support to try to help us when we go back with PennDOT to make it clear that we're trying to be proactive and come up with a best balanced solution for the community, rather than just the best engineering solution. And so that's my comments. If you have any comments or questions back for me, I'll stay up here. Otherwise, I'm done. Thank you.
I would break my role just a little bit about the back and forth. I think we can say that somebody will be in touch with you if they haven't already been, which it appears not. Somebody will be in touch with you about that.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop.
You're welcome.
Good evening. My name's Carl Ruzicka. I'm a board member with Newtown Crossing, and I'm here to reiterate what Pete just talked about. I've been on the board Newtown Crossing for over 15 years, talked to a lot of our community members, and people are afraid of what might happen when Arcadia starts developing the property and puts in the U-turn at Mill Pond. We know what happened on Sycamore Street. That was a bad intersection for quite a while. And when the fatality happened, people got energized. This is something we don't have to wait for a fatality to happen. It's something we could work on now to prevent that. It's already a bad intersection. And with more traffic and a U-turn that can only be used by cars, not trucks, it's going to cause more traffic going up Mill Pond. It's going to have, deleterious effects for the people trying to use that intersection. And Pete developed a very reasonable alternative that would keep some of that, if not all of the traffic, out of that intersection. If you would be willing to step up and work with Senator Sanacero, Representative Warren, they are willing to work with the township to try to get PennDOT to reconsider the alternative that Pete developed, the re-signalization. So I'm asking you, for the community, please work with our two representatives to the state to try to get this prospective U-turn changed into a safer alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Let me find my agenda. We have no minor approvals this evening. Comes to reports of boards, committees, boards, committees, and commissions. I don't see a planning commission report on here tonight. We'll go right to board members. And I guess I had two things I wanted to just mention. I participated in 2 webinars about the American Recovery Plan and how money can be distributed according to the new federal rule. So that was one thing I did. And if I can find my notes. And I guess that's it. Yep, that's it. So, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 things. On February 2nd, at the invitation of Borough Council member Amy Lustig, I attended a Newtown Borough Council work session at which Mr. Don Hayden presented a synopsis of a plan for implementing a walk-friendly Newtown initiative. The objectives of this initiative would be to enhance pedestrian safety, improve walkability, and increase community engagement. A near-term goal is to contact Walk Friendly Communities program to determine if Newtown Borough is eligible to be part of that program. So it was a learning experience for me. It is my hope that Newtown Township could some way collaborate with the borough to achieve an expanded walk-friendly Newtown that includes North Sycamore Street, which borders the borough and receives many walkers from the borough. And they cited Mount Lebanon was cited as an example of a township-borough walkability collaboration that was favored by walk-friendly communities. So I think that merits some kind of continued collaboration between the township and the borough in some manner or form. The second thing was I have a report from the Zoning Hearing Board regarding the electric vehicle charging stations. On February 3rd, the Zoning Hearing Board unanimously approved an application to allow 3 electric vehicle charging stations to be installed in the LI district. As you know from the Planning Commission, there was questions about, queuing, questions about how long people would stay, how much it would cost, et cetera, et cetera. And a couple of the Zoning Hearing Board members expressed there's no guidance in the joint municipal zoning ordinance regarding these charging stations, and they look forward to this ordinance being amended hopefully in the near future, because they were told that many more applications for variances will come in for other businesses and locations to install these electric vehicle charging stations. So I would hope that the board would at some point be open to bringing this up with the Joint Zoning Council to see if we can better define in our ordinance what is required of an electric vehicle charging station. That's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Secretary Treasurer.
First, I'd like to report on the Environmental Advisory Committee. They have not met for the reorganization. Monday is the first meeting of the year, and I'll report on that at the next meeting. I was at the Parks and Recreation meeting, and it was very enlightening. There was hardly anybody there, so there wasn't a quorum. But I learned a lot that I didn't know, and I really I respect that organization a lot, so I hope I can do a lot more with them. And now for the announcements. Register today for the following upcoming programs. Let's celebrate Valentine's Day, A Taste of Fencing, Trash to Treasure, and Schools Out workshops. Summer is just around the corner. Camp registration is now open for our day camps ages 4th through 8th grade. Upcoming community events include e-recycling on March 19th and Touch a Truck on April 14th. Discount movie tickets are available to purchase at the Parks and Rec office. Discount Sesame Place tickets coming soon. Hear that, Kyle? He took your job.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Your copy of the announcement was laying right next to the speaker. I don't know why you couldn't read them.
There you go.
Thanks, Kyle. Kyle, do you have anything else to add since we're here?
I do, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Calabro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we all know, next month will mark 2 years that we've been under this pandemic, stressful times. And during that period, we have seen a lot of resident appreciation of our first responders. We've seen food sent to the police, to the rescue squad, to the fire department, by residents and also by some businesses that would feed the police and everyone else. I'd like to give credit where credit is due. I think a couple weeks ago, I did mention the great donation that Mr. Lutz from the Green Parrot had given for basically pedestrian safety. And this time, I'd like to talk about an ongoing program that is being done by La Scala Italian Market. It's called Fuel the Force. And what they do is they ask and take donations from residents, which goes into what I'll call a kitty, volunteered for accumulation of funds that may buy a sandwich for a police officer, albeit Newtown Township Police, Newtown Borough Police. Hey, maybe it could be a policeman from Upper Makefield, Lower Makefield. And again, this is done out of gratitude for what the police have done over the last 2 years. They've taken a few hits with COVID cases, officers missing from the force, but they haven't missed a beat. They've protected this township. And I would hope that our board members would be receptive of this and not think that, just because the police are paid by the township, that they're asking for free sandwiches. They're not doing that. This is done out of the gracious hearts of the citizens of Newtown Township. And when I heard that one of our board members basically talking bad about this program, saying, why are we giving the police sandwiches when they make so much money, I thought that was appalling. And again, the police are not asking for a freebie. This is something that's being given back to the police out of gratitude for what they do. And to hear one of my board members say something like that was definitely sickening. And hopefully that was a mistake. And if it was, that he has a chance to redeem himself. But otherwise, I just find it to be a sickening remark to make when people are giving from their heart so that the police officers can, on occasion, get a free sandwich. And again, they're not asking for it. This is being done by the people of the township. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does sound like a good program, though. Moving right along, no land development issues this evening. So we go to our reports of officials. And we start with our engineer.
Yep, thank you. First item we have on our agenda tonight is the DCED local share grant funding project. Just wanted to make the board aware of just some grant funding that's available right now. This is a grant that's through DCED. Eligible projects for municipalities include various things, can be, ways to improve your community, construction, planning, et cetera. So this year, one great thing about this grant is that there's no municipal match. So we think that it's, a good thing to go after. So one of the projects, after discussing with township staff, is the sidewalk connections in the business commons. We think that could be a good project for this grant. So just wanted to provide the information, hoping to get some consensus from the board on allowing us to work with the township staff to put that grant together. It's due middle of March, so we're in a little bit of a time, I don't want to say crunch, but we have a month about to, if the board is inclined to apply for this. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I definitely would want to apply for the grant. Is this in the business would be connecting sidewalks in the business commons? Do we know about how many?
I think
this wouldn't do it
yeah,
at
so
all,
we had
probably.
previously applied for another grant for that type of project, so similar. So basically, there's existing sidewalk there, so we're looking to just fill those connections in. I think it turned out to be around a half-mile total by the time that we add up those connections. I could be wrong on that number, but that seems about right. So basically, we're just looking to create that walkability, within those commons.
Okay, good. Yes, I certainly be in favor of that.
I have a question. So you're saying you want to get this grant for that one specific purpose? Because I see it could be used for other things. And I was wondering, for example, if we can get it to cover the cost of the police building study, which I think was $20,000. How much is the grant amount?
So the minimum grant, I believe, is $25,000.
So we could get as much as how much, you think?
I mean, I guess the awards could range anywhere from $25,000 to $1 million is the maximum. A lot of times we see, partial awards. Sometimes you'll see, in the middle there, in the few $100,000 range. It can vary for the types of projects, so.
Well, when you do this grant application, will the board have an opportunity to review? I mean, do you put in the grant the types of projects you want to have, covered by this grant?
Yep, so the application that we would put in would be geared to the one specific project, which would be, if the board is inclined, the business common sidewalk. So basically, the application is catered to that project. So everything, you know what I mean? So there's a series of questions that we would fill out related to that project, fill in cost estimates, and, sell the project to the grant funding agency.
Okay, didn't we, you mentioned that we had some other grant for the business commons, didn't you?
We applied for, later last year, we applied for the PennDOT multimodal grant, I believe, for that funding. We haven't heard from that yet, but it's never a bad idea to have another grant opportunity, especially one that doesn't require any municipal match.
So this is specific, it sounds like it's similar to that grant, it's covering similar stuff that we already talked about.
It would, yep, and a lot of the information that we've already prepared could be used for this grant as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Mr. Davis, did you have anything to ask or add?
I said go for it, absolutely.
Okay. That gives you some direction?
Yep, it does. Thank you. The next two items are traffic related, so I will turn it over to Derek Kennedy, our traffic engineer.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Brixmore traffic study was submitted by the developer the end of November, I believe. It was a post-development analysis, which basically compared where they're at now with their build-out. I think it's roughly 77% to the 100% build-out scenario, and then comparing that also back to the original TIS that was done, in the past as was going through the development application. We reviewed the TIS. We provided a response, submitted it back to them, I believe, on January 25th. So right now the ball is in their court to respond back, to our review comments. Just to kind of summarize what those comments were, the report was basically a comparison of scenarios with level of service results that we see from the studies. It didn't include any mitigation or recommendation type alternatives. So, we're asking them to come back with us with a little more insight of what type of options and mitigation factors would they consider or look at.
No. When I looked at the comments, when it came out that several of the intersections were performing poorly, it's kind of like what made me ask for you to come this evening. So they are in the process of working with you to come up with some mitigation strategies where possible.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And then the other question I just wanted clarification on. There was the intersection of Sycamore Street and Silo Drive. I think I answered my own question as I looked through the 148 pages. I think I found it on some of the figures that they had with the lines and so many people turning right, so many people turning left, and all the numbers. I think I found what it's referring to when you say the westbound approach is one-way eastbound, but the traffic figures show people coming out of there.
Correct.
So I think I answered my question.
Right, so the analysis assumes, even though it's wrong-way traffic,
right,
it analyzes that fourth leg, which is something I think for the Sycamore Street discussion is we should look at, because I know it's a private driveway,
Right.
but there's probably an opportunity to improve the signage and striping there to mitigate those errant vehicles that
Conflicts.
shouldn't be there. So those results, if we can take that down to a truly a three-leg intersection and remove that entering traffic from that fourth leg, we'd see a benefit
Yes.
as well as far as level of service.
So thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I had questions about the LOS that was mentioned in your report. Can you put that into some kind of context? I know that in a traffic study done by Wawa at the intersection on the bypass where they're going to build, they had a LOS of D, which was, they said, the traffic engineer says, was acceptable in urban areas. I don't think Newtown is an urban area, but some of the LOS figures for this Brixmor is F. And so that's, is that 2 orders of magnitude worse than a D?
Yeah, so the level service system, right, it comes from the Highway Capacity Manual, which is the industry standard for analyzing intersections, highway interchanges, all kinds of transportation facilities. So basically, similar to a report card, right? A is good, F is bad. But for intersections, it's basically based on average delay. So as your average delay goes up, your level of service, it degrades. It is true, level of service D is typically what's acceptable in urban or developed areas. But that rule of thumb doesn't equate to if a developer sees a level of service F, that's a requirement to get it back down to D. Usually there's a sliding scale, so ideally D is acceptable. If they're coming in and it's already an F, it's not a wild card to, the applicant has to fix that. They typically have to get it back to where it was or better. And then going the other way, if you were a B, which is acceptable, and you bump it up to a D, it's still a significant increase, and they may have to do mitigation factors to go back to closer to, the level of service B as well.
Right.
So generally, it's a general rule of D or better is acceptable in.
Okay. But your report says consider mitigation factors, but the development agreement specifically states that the developer shall perform at its sole cost and expense a traffic study, and developer shall install at its sole cost and expense those additional traffic improvements that developer and township mutually agree are necessary as a result of the developer's traffic study. So we're not just saying consider, we're saying you have to do something. I think with regard to the agreement that we have with Brixmor, is that correct?
Or you have to reach some accommodation.
Yes, so in this
Between
case, if we're seeing level service F, at some of those intersections, I don't think it would be reasonable. We probably wouldn't want to see an improvement plan that would get it to D, right? With the number of lanes and signal lines, it would be probably excessive. But, can we make spot improvements, where we change distribution, maybe ban a movement here or there and get some, reduced benefit? I don't know, not sure what those would be yet, but we're working with them to get there.
So there may be some specific recommendations that you're talking to them about, perhaps?
Right.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, there was Sycamore Street.
Okay, yep, so Sycamore Street. Last month, we submitted our draft report. I think everyone on the board saw that report. We gave an update. Since then, we've been out on the site. We collected site distance information at Silo and some of the other driveways along the Carter to see where we had deficiencies or not. We've looked at lighting conditions and, analyzed, what the conditions would it look like with upgraded lighting. As far as site distance, what we found at Silo, if you're at the stop sign coming out on Silo looking to the left, there is a deficiency that's related to the on-street parking. So stop sign looking left, so your near side parking aisle is blocking the view. We should have at least, I think it was 250 feet of sight distance there. So our recommendation is going to be eliminate one parking spot, and that will give you adequate sight distance coming out of Silo. Lighting, I think there is some work going on in collecting bids from contractors to change out to, the existing bulbs to a brighter LED bulb on the lanterns that are out there now.
I have a question about the lighting. I know down at Jefferson Street, there's the traditional street lights, which are high up.
Mm-hmm.
The lights at the Silo are these antique-looking, nice looking, but will they truly be able to be upgraded to the extent required to improve visibility with LEDs?
They will. What's out there now, and I think it might have been the intent of the design, it's a little bit subdued lighting. I think maybe that was the intent for the homey Main Street type feel, I suspect. But what would be put in there with the LEDs would be a brighter white, light, so it would significantly light it up to where it would be.
Well, I'm not sure that would stop the cars from zooming through there when I know at least one resident might have something to say about that, because you also recommended these RFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons.
Correct.
Which anybody who wants to use a crosswalk would push a button and they would flash, and I think that would really, really give notification to motorists, drivers, that somebody wants to be on the crosswalk, whether there's lighting there or not. Are we still considering that?
That recommendation, I think, is still a recommendation. So, that could move forward. I think the next steps that we need to look at is the issue of speed limit, which is linked to going to PennDOT and getting the RFBs will require a signal permit. We'd also require PennDOT approval to reduce the speed limit. So in the next month or two, we'll be looking at the speed issue out there, building that case, so when we go to PennDOT, we have the data we need,
Well,
to present to them.
does that process preclude actually moving forward with the flashing beacons?
They could be separate. I think having PennDOT accept the concept and approve a permit at 25 miles per hour is an easier sell than 35.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The RFBs will require PennDOT approval.
Why is that?
So all there is considered a signalized device, and PennDOT has authority over all. Any signalized device is approved by PennDOT. Now, the township would have maintenance responsibility, ownership of it, but the permit would be issued by the state.
So all this is bundled together with your communications with PennDOT?
Correct.
And if I may, that when we gave some direction to items 1, 2, 3, and 5, we also then gave some directions for the signal, the beacon system and the speed limits to come kind of like after it. I mean, it's not, you're working concurrently with it, but those will take a little longer.
Yeah, and the reason the speed study is lagging a little bit, we want to get data when the weather gets a little warmer. If we go out there on a weeknight in February and collect speed data, it's not necessarily indicative of what we're trying to do. We'd rather have a little more activity out there and, nice weather, so we're kind of waiting around to collect that data. And I did have a recent discussion with Chief Hearn. He may have some historical data available for some of this, speed and data collection that he has. So I'll coordinate with him, and we'll use that data as well.
Well, I would just like to see this move forward as quickly as possible. For example, at the Sycamore, we really didn't need a traffic study to know that these intersections, you had to wait a long time before you get through them. I mean, we also know from experience on North Sycamore that people are speeding, people are not stopping for people on the crosswalk. So, I'm glad you're doing the study, but, we need to, in my opinion, move a little more quickly if we can. And I'm urging you to do that. And tell us when you'll be meeting with PennDOT and advancing this. So in the future, I hope we can get more information about that.
And I would just add that I think we all want it to be an expedient process, but we want it to be an efficient process too. So, okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, I think that brings us to our solicitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The lone item on our report this evening is board consideration of the adoption of a resolution designating all American Rescue Plan funds as lost revenue. I believe, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned in your report that you attended the town hall that was sponsored by PSATs regarding the final rules that have come out from the Department of Treasury. The good news is that municipalities have been granted the ability to designate the first $10 million of ARP funds that they receive as a general lost revenue allowance. And they can spend the money on pretty much any municipal function. The one thing they kept saying over and over again that you can't spend it on is contributions to pension plans. But other than that, we are probably in very good shape spending that money on any legitimate municipal purpose that needs to have funding or needs to be addressed as a result of the COVID pandemic. The manager asked me to draft a resolution that would designate all funds received as lost revenue. I have done that, and it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution so appropriating the money.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. This process has been recommended by PSATs, I believe, and
that's correct.
some other agencies. Mr. Lewis, it's been recommended by PSATs. It's been recommended by our
the auditors recommended it, so is GFOA.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to agree that this is the best route to take.
Really seems like a no-brainer, but I will ask if anyone else has comments.
I have a question for the solicitor. I saw recently, I think it was it Lower Marion, Upper Marion, that apparently that board misappropriated their funds. And I'm just wondering, what is the safeguard that our funds would never be misappropriated?
Well, when the funds are received by the township, they, I believe we've received half of them already. They have been placed in a separate bank account. When the remainder is received, it'll be placed in the same bank account, and the standard accounting for the expenditure of those funds will apply just as any other bill or invoice that the board considers. So that money will not and cannot be spent until the board so authorizes.
So if we see Mr. Lewis on a island all by himself, we could assume that maybe he absconded with the money, but otherwise we're safe. That's good to hear.
Otherwise we're safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it'd be done by like resolution for each?
Yeah, and I drafted a sample resolution that the manager has that appropriates for specific purposes, and each time that the board decides to spend ARP funds on a project, then those resolutions will be adopted.
Great. Any other questions, comments from the board? Any from the public? Okay. Mr. Zarnota.
Greg Zarnota again. Excuse me. My name's Greg Zarnota. I'm from Newtown Grant. On the engineering report and the safety issues, I have questions about, has the engineers looked at the crosswalks all throughout Newtown Township?
Would you mind coming back for public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry.
About that second round?
I'm sorry.
Because right now we're discussing the resolution about ARPA. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Hank Schrant, and I'm also the township auditor. So when you talked about the funds in a separate account, that would be identified like for I guess for this year as it comes to fruition when it gets reviewed towards the end of the year and going through I guess we have an external auditor that will look at it, but then we also, because it seems pretty significant, that I guess we would need, I think in my position and my associates, there's 4 to 3, that we would want to, I guess, identify that so it's easy to review and be able to highlight it. You know what I'm saying? So that the funds that are being extracted, or the expenses being extracted from that account over the course of, I don't know if it's this year or next year and so on.
Mr. Sanders,
if that's a question,
Yeah, I guess it's a question, because I kind of missed part of the conversation at the beginning with the funds that are coming
from the American Rescue Plan?
The American Rescue Plan, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they're deposited in a separate account that will be accounted for, audited, and controlled by the Board of Supervisors.
Right. But these are the kinds of things that I'm new in the position, but I also would be interested in when I see, towards the end of the year, when we go to review it, after the auditor submits it, that I would be able to decipher that from the normal funds of the township.
Yeah, I believe you would, Mr. Lewis. Being a separate account, I believe it'll be a separate, if the right term is line item, or how does that work?
It's a separate fund.
Okay.
Right.
Completely separate fund, not just a line item under another fund.
Okay.
And you'll be able to see that.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We'll keep you apprised.
Hi, Frank McCarron again.
Yep.
We usually have a gentleman here from Newtown Friends. He's not here tonight, so I feel like I have to speak on his behalf. When we first got the grant and learned of the grant, he came here and he explained how it cost him a lot of money to comply with all the requirements to get masks, et cetera. And he had asked if there was a way to apply to the township for a grant to help offset those funds that they expended. And at the time, Mr. Lewis said you didn't have a process. And so I guess speaking for him, or what I'm hoping is for him, is once you do this, does that mean that what he was hoping he could get, you are now in a position to give, or you're in a position that, because you've designated, that you cannot give? So I want you to just give some thought to whether or not, hey, this all sounds great, but what are the implications of that beyond that? Thank you.
This actually broadens, Mr. Chairman, the ability of the township to spend this money, rather than having to account for each separate expenditure under a different category of permitted use under the ARP regs. This pretty much bundles it all into the ability to spend it as the township wishes.
Mr. Lewis, did you want to add something? Yeah, what we're voting on right now is the resolution to allow us to take advantage of the standard allowance of up to $10 million. Of course, we're only getting a little over $2 million. But it allows us to take advantage of that, and it's part of the rules that they're actually suggesting and recommending that we take advantage of. So that's what we're voting for now. There is another agenda item down the road this evening that we will talk about, preliminary discussions of how the money is spent, some very preliminaries. So right now we're voting, and public is, anyone else have comments from the public? Any other from the board?
Just this resolution doesn't have any specific dates on it, but I know you have to make your decision to opt into this by April 30th. I think there was a date mentioned, April 31st. I don't think that's in this resolution, right?
The resolution will bear tonight's date if it is adopted.
But I mean, in order to get into this program, you have to make sure you opt in before.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mack. Yes, we've opted in long ago. We opted into this.
You opted in? I thought this resolution was giving the township permission to opt in.
No.
What is this? Then I'm
It's
confused.
designating the funds as lost revenue. What that does is allows us to file that report on April 30th, by April 30th, and check that box that this is how we're designating that funds, and it's a lot simpler reporting process.
Okay. All right.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for your clarification. Seeing no more discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this resolution, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Move along to the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General fund balance as of this evening is $4,277,406. The plan expiration is before the board with no action required. Tonight we have Chief Hearn to give his monthly chief's report. Evening, Chief.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, board members. January 2022 police report. We documented 1,690 calls for service. We logged 26,229 miles on our patrol fleet. We had 10 arrests, 3 for DUI, 2 for forgery, 2 for narcotics possession, and 3 for simple assault. There were 12 new cases referred to detectives, 3 crime scenes processed. Some of those cases included fraud, child line reports, and theft of catalytic converters. We had 58 traffic crashes, 5 injuries, 26 non-injuries, and we did have 9 deer collisions. 124 traffic citations were issued and 175 warnings issued. Notable jobs, unfortunately, 3 of our patrol fleet were struck while parked and unattended by civilian vehicles. Insurance companies are actually taking care of them damages. We had 1 truck enforcement detail with task force, Washington Avenue and Elm in the borough. The second was canceled due to weather conditions, resulting in 11 inspections, 3 citations, and 1 vehicle placed out of service. Part of our public service announcements, I did actually meet on January 27th with the Newtown Business Association, along with Carly Manning from Traffic Management Agency, and we educated and collaborated with the business community regarding safety on Sycamore Street. On April 30th will be our official drug take-back day. It'll be held here from the hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Signs will be posted. Once again, frauds, if they're too good to be true, it probably is. Please protect your personal information. Don't be scammed by frivolous offers. And watch your bank and account statements for any fraudulent activities. Our team program, teaching, educating, and mentoring program is still ongoing with Officer Turpin and Officer Ferrero to our young school kids, so that is positive. That concludes my report for this month. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Chief, I have a question on the thefts of the catalytic converters.
Sure.
Are they any specific make and model? Because, gee, I know I had mine repaired and it took like about 8 hours. How are they getting them out of the car so quickly?
Unfortunately, it's a national phenomenon, not just locally for Newtown Township. It takes about 2 minutes with a Sawzall to climb underneath your vehicle and take the catalytic converter. I did have documentation here regarding the states, the increase across the nation. I'm trying to locate that for you. Bear with me.
While you're doing this, is there a reason why they're taking, I mean, how, are these a valuable?
Yeah, it's a valuable commodity. Obviously, it's a metal within certain vehicles, and it's sporadic. It was Toyota Priuses were a hot item back in the day. They're still a hot item based on the value of the metals within that. They were hitting E350 and E250 cargo vans as well. And the stats from the National Insurance Crime Bureau jumped from 2019, 3,389 across the nation to over 14,433 thefts of catalytic converters. This is a opportunity, middle of the night, middle of the day. It doesn't matter. These people were callous. And the issue is trying to locate the actual identifiable factor of that catalytic converter to a particular vehicle, which is difficult for any law enforcement. Once we catch them at a separate location, say they have 10 in the back of their vehicle, trying to ascertain what vehicle they came from.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I should have had one of these people change my catalytic converter.
Save you about $1,000, $1,500, huh?
Any other questions for the chief?
I would just like to make a statement that I want to thank you for your tour of the police facility and the nice conversation that we had. I thank you for that. I learned a lot. Thank you for doing your job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I had a question. And good to see that there was no auto versus pedestrian incidents this month, and I hope that continues in the long trend. Related to that and what RVE was talking about, the traffic study that you might have done, and I remember you saying that speeding was not really an issue on North Sycamore, but I'm pretty sure people do speed there occasionally, and I know it's probably very difficult to enforce the speeding law, whether it's 25 miles per hour or 35 miles per hour. But I know that on the Jefferson Street intersection, there are cameras. And I also know that places like Brooklyn, New York, where I come from, these cameras can take your photo if you're speeding, and they'll send you a ticket by mail, which I know somebody has received. And I'm wondering if that sort of thing is possible in Newtown using the cameras that we have.
The cameras that we have aren't owned by us. They're owned by private entities and/or PennDOT for traffic control and signalization. The other locations, such as Philadelphia, do have red light cameras, violation cameras. It's privately owned, and it actually costs a lot of money for the city to operate. And the portion of the funds that come in go back to the city. It would have to determine the board's decision whether or not to move forward with that type of program, and it would be a cost analysis thing, I'm assuming, for the board. But it is possible.
It is possible then, okay. So can they be installed, I know the ones at Jefferson Street are installed on the traffic light poles. We don't have those at Silo Drive, or even maybe at Durham Road there might be. So there's a possibility we could do that, is what you're saying. It just costs money.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't want to belabor this, but I'm not thinking those are video cameras that take a picture at Jefferson Street. I thought they were more like one to detect a car being in place so they can give the left turn lane or not.
I'm unfamiliar exactly what Jefferson Street actually
Yeah,
has. It may be just for traffic signaling purposes,
Yeah.
but there are cameras out there that take photographs of the operators of the vehicles as well as the tag number.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Jefferson Street, I don't believe have the one that identifies the tag number. It probably just for traffic signaling purposes.
I'll have to check it out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman, next item under my agenda is at the previous board meeting. Board gave direction to staff to have an item placed on the agenda related to the online streaming of Board of Supervisors meetings. We've included that on this agenda. The appropriate motion would be motion to authorize Proposal 3 by Video Gold for online streaming of Board of Supervisor meetings in the amount of $4,900.
Do we have such
I'll
a
make
motion?
the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis.
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Do you have any comments or questions from the board?
Yes, I would just like to say that hopefully this does not in any way prohibit us from going farther and having actual hybrid meetings. So this is actually the first step in doing so, but with an understanding that, and I believe that we have to move forward to go truly hybrid, which this doesn't do. That's all.
I'm definitely in favor of it as a first step. I was wondering if we also, we don't have to incorporate this in the motion, just have an understanding that we'll encourage some way of the public to give comment through email or what have you.
That's a procedural decision. It's up to the board.
Okay.
Right, I'd like to, maybe amend the motion to include that we would like, as we did when we had full Zoom meetings, people could send in comments in real time during the meeting via email to a special email address. I forget what that is, what email address that was. And then somebody who could be monitoring that at the dais here would, and I think, Mr. Lewis, you did that, but I don't know who could do it now, but I'm sure we have the personnel to do that, can monitor that email account and read those comments out loud and into the public record, just as we did when we had full Zoom meetings. So I don't know, I'd like to make sure that we are doing that as well as streaming live on YouTube.
Okay. Mr. Davis, would you be in a mind to amend your motion to include that?
Sure.
And you amend your second?
I will second that.
Since you brought it up. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, how about from the public? Any comment from the public?
John DeApril, Newtown Grant. I disagree. You open it up for email or phone calls and stuff like that. You know how long your meetings are going to be? Longer than they used to be in the old building. You're going to be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. If you look at all our regular meetings we had, the only time you get a full room is when the building is somebody's backyard. And that's a fact. Now, to have people with their emails, do they have the right name on there? How do you check that? You know, a lot of people's emails have like a nickname on there or something like that. I mean, you don't want all Johnny Mac's millions calling up here. I mean, Johnny Mac had tried to make me a YouTube star by putting me on, saying that the people won't come to the meetings, they're lazy. But, you know, hey, the people know that. That's why, I didn't become a YouTube star. I am on there, though. That's, something Johnny did. Which is legal or not, I won't even get into that. But, I mean, the guy has a number of things. He keeps on quoting on his social media. He keeps on quoting the next door blog. And next door, has a lot of people with nicknames and stuff. And there he goes walking out. He don't want to hear because he knows I'm telling the truth. He walks away. The guy is terrible, worst supervisor ever on the Newtown Board of Supervisors.
Mr. DeApril,
Worst supervisor ever.
Please refrain from personal attacks, please.
Okay, well, that's the truth too. You know, it's not a personal attack, it's the truth.
Well, it is
It's
personal.
truth, the personal attack.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you got the guys I used to work with, his brother over there, who, you know, they lives in the same development. I won't tell you about that, but, you know, he's got a record there. You know, you don't want that because of, you know, you can't qualify. When you had the Zoom meetings, the story on that is you hardly had anybody there, except for that one meeting that, you know, you had the people in their building, and they rightfully so, they all showed up, you know. But normally, 8 people, and who had to handle the comments? You know, our manager over here was all by himself, and had to do all the rest of the stuff. Ask him what he thinks about it. He'll tell you. You know, it's just a terrible thing to have people call in. You want to come to the meeting, come here. I mean, I never knew that people did watch these things until they started coming up to me at the farmer's market in the Acme, and even a few times I go to Giant. I usually do my business in Newtown, not like a lot of you guys. But anyhow, you know, they would come to me and say, hey, I didn't see you last meeting. I said, yeah, I didn't make it. I had, you know, homeowners or whatever. And, you know, I was surprised if people watch it. But I asked them, hey, why don't you come there? I need some help. Some of these decisions they're making are terrible. You know, I need some help. Oh, you take care of it. You take care of it. Do you call I lazy, or do you call I just not interested enough to do it? If you leave it over for email and phone calls, they'll stay home, comforted at home, on their couch, in their private office or whatever, and they'll call up, they'll email and stuff like that. And he says, you want to get on Johnny Mac's meetings to do that? No, you don't. Thanks.
Just to clarify, we're not talking about calling in. We're just, the motion is for email only. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the Video Gold proposal number 3, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item under the manager's report is the authorization to purchase the asphalt recycler that was included in the budget under the liquid fuels fund. So the appropriate motion would be motion to purchase the Falcon asphalt recycler through CoStars in the amount of $43,782.50.
There's such a motion. I'll make that motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board?
I need to understand what this is used for, why it's needed. I guess it's needed for repaving potholes.
It's for more permanent repair of potholes. So the way this works is you can either purchase hot mix, which is the hot blacktop, and leave it in this trailer to stay heated until the following day. That way you don't have to waste it. Or you can use the millings that they collect from milling out the roadways as part of the road program, and you can reuse those millings in this asphalt machine to make a more permanent patch repair. This would be used alongside of the surface planer that we have for the Bobcat, and it would also allow us to obtain asphalt or the millings in the middle of winter when the asphalt plant shut down.
Right. So it'll be used in conjunction with the Bobcat attachment.
Yes.
I thought the last time we talked about that, there was a problem with that in terms of either the personnel needed for that or the training needed to use that. Has it been used? I haven't seen these patches around town very much, and I'm just wondering how much it's been used.
I'll have to get back to you with that.
Okay. But this would make it easier, I assume, to keep the asphalt and to be able to use that equipment. I hope we're spending $44,000 on something that would actually be used to improve the pothole repairs. So that's my only concern.
And it's coming in $1,200 under what we budgeted, so.
We had budgeted, I believe, 45,000.
45. So $1,217.
No, you're correct. Yep.
Yep. Okay, any other comments from the board, from the public? Seeing none, I call the question. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Is that voice coming from the... So yes, motion carries 5-0. And our last item.
The last item under my report, Mr. Chairman, is essentially to open it up for discussion with the board regarding the funds that were obtained from the American Rescue Plan. The U.S. Treasury recently amended the final rule, and earlier this meeting we've designated those funds as lost revenue, so it allows the board to allocate those funds in a much more diversified manner. So what we had done is sort of went through with that change, and we've worked with our department heads and come up with sort of a preliminary list of projects and purchases that are needed throughout the different departments in the township. We provided that in the board packet last meeting, and this is in no way set in stone. This is more of a recommendation from staff, along with a supplementary list of stuff that could be substituted in at the board's discretion.
So we have, I guess, for want of a different procedure, I guess I'll make a couple of comments and then ask the rest of the board for any comments. Looks like we have kind of like a primary, a recommended list, and an alternative list. What I did as I was looking through this, I put some question marks on a few things. I crossed out a couple of things. I said yes to a few things. And I was, in so doing, I was able to look at like both lists. And I came up with, I was able to keep it under $2 million. But as you say, this is a preliminary. I'm not sure what other preferences from the other board members are and what comments we might get from the public at some point. But I'd be happy to make a list of the ones I said yes to personally, and we could collate those responses if we want to go forward. That's my thought of how to proceed. But
And our recommendation would be, we don't want to come up with a whole comprehensive list at once because there's no way we'd be able to even accomplish that. So it's our recommendation that the board pick maybe 2 or 3 things off of these lists to direct the administration and the solicitor to move forward with preparing the resolutions necessary to use these funds for any of these manners.
Well, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I was just going to rephrase that for my understanding and folks at home, that we would prioritize 2 or 3. Maybe we could get a 4th one in there somewhere. Our priorities for now, and we don't want to. Like you say, we can't process all these expenditures at the same time anyway. So take a stepwise approach is the way I always look at things. But okay.
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that we need to have public input on this, and I don't know if this document has been made public or not, but I believe we need to start discussing this and getting public input And as far as the items on here that I think are important, especially upgrades to the public meeting room AV system, and that sort of thing to improve communications in this room so that when people do come here, they can actually hear what's going on, and not just at this Board of Supervisors meeting, but at the other meetings of the Planning Commission and the Zoning Hearing Board, and also, as Ms. Snyder said, to implement some sort of hybrid meetings along with that. We may need equipment to do that. So I don't know how we're going to prioritize this list, but we need to, I guess, do that. We could start spending at any time, but we need to make sure we're doing it in a manner that's acceptable, I guess they would call it. Will the list be made public on the website, for example?
As of right now, this list is a work product of the Board of Supervisors, so it's not public yet. It's up to the board.
Well, can I make a motion that we publish this list on the website?
You can give direction.
Yes, you can make that motion.
I will make that motion.
Hold on, I think Mr. Lewis was speaking to this. Our agenda item is discussion.
We're not making decisions.
We're not making, exactly. You can direct that, and you can direct your anger about that rule to Harrisburg.
To who?
Harrisburg.
Harrisburg?
Yes.
My suggestion anyway is going to be to wait until we get a little bit more refined and maybe have everyone have their input, and then at some point make a document public for public comment.
Well, how should we refine it? What's the process for refining it?
Well, my suggestion would be for each of us to come up with a set of priorities, 2, 3, maybe the fourth one. Send it to a designated person. I would volunteer. I would think somebody from administration should be part of that.
So we can add our own items to this as well?
You could, yeah.
And how can the public add any items to it?
Well, I think let us go through our process first, and then make it open to the public once we get to that point. Mr. Calabro, you have?
Mr. Chair, I just have a question. If we were to add items, of which isn't a bad idea, how are we to determine what the cost would be?
Oh, yeah.
That's the only thing. I mean, we're just guessing, whereas maybe these figures were gotten by a professional.
Yes. Well, that would certainly be the purpose behind having somebody from administration getting that list. I'd be willing to get that list as well, and then go back and forth between, to clarify between the person and the administration how to cost it out.
Well, if we had items to add to the list, I don't think we need to put a figure on it to begin with. We need to understand how the board feels just about in general to spend money, any amount of money, on what you're proposing. And then we do have experts sitting up here who can go out and get that information about the costs. We did that with the hybrid hearings when we got proposals from Video Gold. Mm-hmm. We first put out the notion that we'd like to have hybrid meetings, and we instructed Mr. Lewis to get these proposals from Video Gold. So I'm assuming the same process could be followed when we suggest items to be added or removed from this list. Uh-oh.
Kyle, are you still there?
No, I got disconnected.
Okay. I didn't do nothing.
He's phone's dead.
All right.
Is there a timeline in which you would like to have some comment from the rest of the board? Is it 2 weeks?
I would suggest 2 weeks. Do people want to respond more quickly than that, but 2 weeks is fine with me. Okay.
All right. I just want to note, Mr. Chairman, the board did meet prior to this meeting in executive session related to the Toll Brothers, Twining Bridge Road property, and Brookshire Estates.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. All right, we can move on then to minutes, bills, list, and reports.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of January 26, 2022.
That's a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. Do we have any conversation, any comments or questions from the board? Seeing none. Any from the public? I'll call a question. Those in favor of approving the minutes of January 26th, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And motion carries 4-0. All right.
I'd like to make a motion to pay our bills in the total of $292,107.89.
You have that motion. Do we have a second? I'll second that. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a,
Okay, let me get,
sorry.
that's good. Any further conversation from the board, from the public? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor of paying our bills, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve our total of interfund transfers in the amount of $316,229.77.
Okay, we have such a motion, and how about a second? Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions from the board, from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the interfund transfers, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Yes? Kyle's gone. That brings us to our second round of public comment. And Mr. Zarnota, you're on deck.
Got it right this time. It's basically for the engineers. You're talking about doing a grant, one grant, for one item. Why can't you do 2 grants, one for each item? Is there any reason why the state doesn't allow you to do multiple grants for different items?
Yeah, you can answer.
I believe a municipality could put in several applications for different types of projects. I can't say on the success rate of that. I would imagine that the grant funding would pick one, if any, to receive funding. So that's certainly, a possibility. There's also various other types of grants too that we're always on the lookout for various types of projects.
That's the other thing I was thinking about. Grant programs are all over the place, as I understand it, for a lot of things because of COVID, and I think we should definitely take advantage of it. On the $2 million that we're supposedly getting, or getting from the COVID program, those that have picked the monies to be spent were department heads of the individual departments in the Newtown Township, like the police and like the engineers and like each, I want to put their own want list out there, correct? Or not? That's not correct? Because the public hasn't had a chance to talk about it, and we haven't seen it, and we don't know whether we think they should have a bulldozer that's able to lift up this building or something. I mean, we just haven't seen anything. So I think that definitely needs to be communicated to the public to say, okay, we're spending this money wisely and for everybody's benefit, not just for one or two departments. The last thing that I want to ask about is that, talking about safety, and Sycamore Street, I guess, made everybody realize that we have a problem with walkers and walking in the street, and even when it's a marked area, somebody gets hit by a car. Well, if you drive around, you're going to see in the older developments where there are crosswalk marks, they all need to be painted. They've all been beat up, they've all been driven over, they've been plowed through, and Newtown Grant is that way. I'm trying to think of the other ones that I was over at today. But the older developments, if you go in any of them where they have crosswalks over a major street, the lines are being blurred, they're gone, so people may not see them. And if we have to do them in metallic paint, something that's shiny and bright, let's do it that way. We don't want people killed. So,
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because I forgot to mention that as I was driving by the Brixmore Shopping Center on South Eagle Road and Durham Road, those markings are all faded away, basically, and that is a major intersection where I think we should improve the markings over there as well.
and it's everywhere, especially the older ones. The newer developments, they haven't run them down yet. But the older developments like Newtown Grant and Raintree and the ones over there and ones you mentioned, you can barely see half of them. So I'd just like to put that comment into the traffic engineers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Frank McCarron. While we have the traffic engineer here and the police chief, I just want to share an experience I had on Friday having to do with Sycamore and Silo. I was with my son coming back from Washington Crossing, and we decided we would go to the Green Straw. And I don't know if you know the Green Straw. It's a business on Sycamore. It's a smoothie place directly across from the Green Parrot. So we're coming from Durham, and we park on Sycamore right next to the Green Parrot. And I said, okay, well, this is going to be our chance to see how these signs are doing to yield to pedestrians. So, we go to cross the intersection in the crosswalks, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and no one is stopping. I mean, technically, to generate someone required to stop, you have to step into the intersection. So we step into the intersection, and there were at least a dozen cars going back and forth either direction, and not one person slowed down. And when there was finally a break towards the left, there was a car coming from Swamp, but it was like several hundred feet away. And I was like, okay, well, we can start crossing now. They have plenty of time to see us crossing and slow down. And this person didn't slow down at all. I mean, I'm standing in the middle of the road, and they don't slow down. They go right by me 35 miles an hour. So, it's nice to say we have an issue with people crossing illegally, use the crosswalks, I agree, but this is broad daylight. These cars are not respecting those signs, and it's just not enough. Now, Princeton, New Jersey, where they're fanatics about this kind of thing, they've set up stings, right, where they have a plainclothes police officer walk into a crosswalk specifically to see if cars stop. And if they don't, they have cops waiting on the other end, and they just start writing tickets. And if there was ever an intersection that needed that, I mean, that's one. I mean, I'd like to think that if you had flashing lights that, if they install that people would stop for that, but, it's a real issue. So, and I forgot to submit this before. Thank you.
Thank you. I've heard stories like that before. I just hope I'm never the driver who goes through that intersection. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Hank Schrant, Newtown, Sawmill Lane. Shame the guy earlier had left about Arcadia. Just so this past year, I visited like 2 houses right in that where the Arcadia is going to come out to, I guess, was it Buck Road? And I suggested that, and I actually visited the houses, and I talked to the one owner closest to Buck Road, and suggested he would come here and talk to you about, what his life experience is there. But just my brief time of pulling into their driveway, there's like 2 houses there, and then if you go straight, you go to the church, that it's pretty tough to navigate, particularly when, you're coming across, if you're going like from the creek up, make a left. And then also, if you try to walk it, and it's pretty wide, it's almost impossible to walk across now the way it is, let alone like if they had the houses come out and they'll exit on that, I don't know how they'll exit in that intersection, probably right where the church is, I guess. But that really is hairy. And I walked it, and it was scary. And I can't imagine anybody trying to use that walk path to get to the other side. And it is so wide, and you have like the skinny island, if you're lucky, if cars come in really fast, and I had to use that. So just my experience, and I don't live there, but the people who do live there, the 2 houses, they have a concern the way it is now, let alone that. And then the other thing I want to mention about, and it was brought up earlier about like, having a gun shop versus the gun show. That one thing that's the biggest difference between the two is when you make a purchase at a gun show, there's no requirement that you have to do a background check. Where you have a gun shop, you have to do a background check. So I just want to point that out as a major difference. And I know with the rise in deaths, and particularly like policemen even being ambushed nationally last year, and the death rate of cops getting killed on duty from firearms is, I think it ended up being a record last year, the record number of deaths among cops. So I just want to also point out is there's been a lot of arrests going through up along I-95 from like Florida all the way up to like New York, that direction. And I-95 is now known as the Iron Run, because that's where like gun kits come up from the south, and they load vehicles. I guess they pack them and hide them wherever they can in the vehicles, because a lot of them get pulled over. There's like stings going up to New York and Connecticut, and they're finding a lot of guns kits, because they'll assemble them. There's no serial numbers, so they should be illegal guns, but because you make them in kits, I guess it's legal. But they're being smuggled up along 95. So they even have a nickname for it, is the Iron Run. It's like packing iron. So I just wanted to point that out. So it's getting worse. It's not getting better. So there's a lot of loopholes that concern me. And maybe I'd be more comfortable if there was a gun shop where you do background checks. But a felon can buy a gun off a gun show. And I used to live near Oaks Treatment in Montgomery County. I used to be on the sewer regional authority for the Oaks treatment plant. But there's a big gun show there that's held like a few times a year in Oaks. It's like in a big convention center where the home show is. So these things are big. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not sure what Jim Worthington had in size, but it sounds like it's going to be sizable in his mind. And that's not as big as like the convention center in Oaks. So just wanted to, my observations and my concerns. So, thank you.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
You mentioned that you can buy guns without a background check, but that only applies to private gun sellers. Like if you had a gun collection and you set up in a gun show, and it only applies to certain types of guns, like rifles, long guns. So I'm not sure
well,
if this...
for the private sales, I think.
Yeah, but...
Right. That's different, and that's actually different from if you're buying from someone who sells guns at a gun show. In Pennsylvania, they don't have to do a background check. I did my homework. I researched that a couple weeks ago and checked it out. Okay.
Mr. Schmidt, is what I didn't want to have a back.
Oh, yeah, okay, okay, I gotcha. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll go on to old business. I have one item of old business. I'm not aware of others, but please let me know. Under old business, we have fire services agreement with Newtown Borough. And I can give a brief update. Tomorrow morning, we have a meeting of the township negotiators. Actually, tomorrow afternoon. I might have said tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon, with Chief Forsyth and myself and Ms. Snyder. And then we meet with the borough on the 17th, in the afternoon on the 17th. So we will be trying to make some progress, and we will report back. Any other old business? New business. Have one item under new business. Consider the appointment of a sewer authority board member. And I was wondering if we have a motion for a nomination for the sewer authority.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Alan Snyder to the Sewer Authority Board.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion? Seeing none from the board, any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of appointing Ellen Schneider as a Sewer Authority Board member, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. You're welcome. Any other old or new business? Mr. Solicitor, Mr. Manager, there's no need for an executive session since we had one before and you've made that announcement.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Reminder that the township will be closed for President's Day on February 21st, that is correct. And thank you all for attending, and with that, without objection, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
So moved.
Maybe have to have maybe some money involved to even think about that, or copious amounts of alcohol. But
yeah, what if you were in like a rap music video and people were making it rain on you during it?
Maybe that.
Yeah, that's my fantasy. All right, I'm getting weird. All right, I'll let you go. I think the dog's on fire. I got to go put it out. Have a great night.
You too, bye.
On February 23rd, get ready